Hey friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Teacher Kayla, and I'm so glad that you're joining me today. Today, we are talking about a super hot topic right now, which is lab-grown meat. Now, this is not exactly a new topic, but a lot of the things that they are doing now are making this topic come back up into conversation. In Australia, they have recently developed a woolly mammoth meatball that could literally feed your entire family. And in the US, they have approved a lab cultivated chicken that you could actually purchase from some restaurants in Washington, D.C.
Like it's a crunchy, normal piece of chicken.
As well as California. So it's coming, but they're saying that it's a little bit too expensive to mass produce and sell in supermarkets so far. You're not going to be able to pick up any at your local supermarket anytime soon, but you might be able to get a taste at a local restaurant in the near future. With all of that said, I am going to go much more in depth with that. I will link that here as soon as it's finished, but I'm working on it right now. For today, we are just going to graze the top of this subject and get you prepared with some new vocabulary. We're going to read an article and discuss it so that you are prepared for the information that I will share in the next video. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get started. We are on the Ingu website today. We're talking about this startup out of Australia that has created a lab-grown meatball from mammoth cells. This is a level 8 advanced lesson. Just be prepared for that. So we are going to get into some pretty detailed and maybe some difficult words for you. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get into the vocabulary for this lesson. And the first word that we're looking at, sequence. Sequence is a set of related events, actions, or items that follow each other in a particular order. We're talking about a sequence of events. We would be talking about the first event, start at the beginning, the next event, the next event, the next event, until we're at the end. So each event is part of the whole sequence. This example that they give you here, the program generates a random sequence of characters to create a unique password. So they say a random sequence of characters, that would be a random set of characters. So we have A, B, C, D, E, 1, 2, 3, which is not very random, but that is your sequence. Okay, we start here, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. It's the sequence that they use. They must be put in this order for your password to work, or you're not going to get into your account. Our next word is extinct. If we talk about something being extinct, we mean that it was once here and now it's gone. The example they give here is wild cheetahs became extinct in India in the 1950s due to overhunting and habitat loss. So they became extinct. They were not there anymore in India. And just for a bonus word, endangered means that the animal or the plant is almost extinct, but not quite. For example, eagles in America are endangered species, unfortunately. Our next word is innovation. This explains innovation as the action or process of introducing new methods, ideas, products, etc. For example, innovation is essential to any business that wants to remain competitive. If you want to produce an innovative idea, then you will come up with an idea that could help you to improve something that you already have. All right, this brings us to our next word, cultivate. Cultivate means to culture or maintain living cells or tissues in a controlled environment. So for example, the researchers now plan to test a new method for cultivating stem cells. The researchers are trying to come up with a new way to grow the stem cells. If you're cultivating something, you're basically growing it. So they are trying to grow it and keep it alive. So our next word is adopt. To adopt means to choose, to accept, use, or follow something. For example, many workplaces have seen an increase in productivity after adopting a 4-day work week. That sounds great. A 4-day work week. Yes, very nice. We get rid of one day, right? Enjoy Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Let's all do that. Maybe there's a comment box somewhere we can leave a comment in to include this in our own jobs, right? If you adopt an idea, then you are deciding that you now follow or believe that idea. For example, you adopt the 4-day work week, then you are saying that is what you are going to do. This is now something that you follow, and you will start only working 4 days a week. Our next word is one-off. This is something that is done, made, or happening only once. For example, this website says this deal is a one-off and won't be offered again. So you want to rush and try to get that deal because it's only happening right then, that one time, and you will not get a chance to catch that deal again unless they have another one-off. But that's not really a one-off, right? So I just wanted to take a minute and say, if you are enjoying my content, please make sure that you are hitting the like button and subscribing if you're not already subscribed. Also, don't forget to download your copy of the free PDF guide that goes along with this lesson. Just more practice and free stuff for you. So make sure to grab it. The link is in the description down below. Check it out. And also, make sure to leave me a comment if you get a chance. Okay, back to it. That brings me to the end of the new keywords. So let's go ahead and jump into our article. It is exercise 2, and again, the name of this article is Startup Creates Lab-Grown Meatball from Mammoth Cells. So let's read it together. So try to follow along. An Australian startup has taken lab-grown meats a step further, or some might say a step back in time. I like this already. In March 2023, the company Vow revealed a meatball made of lab-grown meat using the genetic sequence from the long-extinct woolly mammoth. The reveal in Amsterdam came just days before April Fool's Day, leading many to question, is this a joke? This is a real innovation, Tim Noakesmith, Vow's founder, confirmed. Cultivated meat, also called cultured or cell-based meat, is made from animal cells. Animals don't need to be killed to produce it, which many say is better not just for the animals, but also for the environment. Vow used publicly available genetic information from the mammoth, filled missing parts with genetic data from its closest living relative, the African elephant, and inserted it into a sheep cell. With the right conditions in a lab, the cells multiplied until there were enough to roll up into the meatball. Over 100 companies around the world are working on cultivating meat products. Experts say the technology is widely adopted. It could significantly reduce the environmental impact of global meat production. So far, Singapore is the only country to have approved cell-based meat for consumption. Vow is hoping to sell its first product there, a cultivated Japanese quail meat, later this year. Never tried quail meat, so that could be an interesting treat, something new. The mammoth meatball is a one-off and has not been tasted, even by its creators, and there are no plans to ever sell it. Instead, it was presented as a form of protein that would get people talking about the future of meat. Noakesmith told the Associated Press the woolly mammoth is often seen as a symbol of loss, since climate change likely led to its extinction. Vow wanted to create something that symbolizes a more exciting future, he added. Noakesmith said when the meatball was being prepared, it smelled good and different. Mammoths went extinct 4,000 years ago, so the smell of their meat being cooked is one humans haven't smelled for a long time. Okay, so let's go over this a little bit so you can better understand this article. Let's start back from the beginning. So it talks about in an Australian startup making this lab-grown meatball by using the genetic sequence from the woolly mammoth that's been extinct for a very long time. So they use the same sequence of genetics, so they had to put the genetic in that specific order. Remember, we use the sequence. So they had to put the specific genes to mimic the woolly mammoth's genes. Many people thought this was a joke, like we just pointed out, with it being so close to April Fool's Day, but this is a real innovation, or this is real. This is something that's really happened. Many people think that this is better for the environment because they don't have to go through the processes that emit all of the greenhouse gases processes, keeping all of the animals cooped up in the same area where they're producing harmful chemicals into the environment like methane, and they are not having to slaughter them and all of the other things that go into it that cause a lot of issues for our environment. They're saying the company used the genetic information that's just publicly available to us to find out the genetic sequence to understand what the genes were of the mammoth, and they used cells that came from the elephant that is the mammoth's closest living relative, and they put both of these things into a sheep cell and allowed it to grow or cultivate into the meat that you saw in the picture before. They would grow and multiply until there was enough to roll into that meatball. There are more than 100 companies around the world that are trying to mimic this in some way. They're not all doing woolly mammoth meatballs, but there's a lot of companies that are trying to create other foods, like recreating beef or chicken or pork in a lab, and they're supporting this cause by pointing out how beneficial this could be to the environment to make this change. Now, I've done a little bit of research, and again, I'll put this in the next video that I do, but there is still a chance that they could produce the same amount of negative impact on our environment if this process is not handled properly. So it does need to be properly handled in order to reduce the effect that we're having on the environment. At the date of this article, Singapore was the only country to have approved cell-based meat for consumption, and they talked about producing quail meat, which quail of course is a bird, but actually as of this month the US has also approved a lab cultivated chicken for consumption. Now again, this is not going to be readily available in supermarkets, but it will be available in some restaurants. So they say that this meatball is a one-off, meaning this is the only one, and they don't really predict that they will do this again. They just really wanted to see how much protein or how much meat they could get out of this, and they think that this could help them to better understand the types of meat that they could produce in the future, or the amount of protein that they could get out of it. Is it the same amount of protein as, say, a piece of chicken or a piece of beef, or is there some differences there? Is there more protein or is there less protein? It just helps them to better understand what they're dealing with. The woolly mammoth has been extinct for many years, and the company Vow says that when we think of the woolly mammoth, we think about the animal being extinct. There's a negative connotation, and what I mean by connotation is that there's a negative overtone to it. There's a negative feeling about that. This company wanted to change that to where you have a more positive feeling when you think about the woolly mammoth. It allows you to look forward to the future. And they said it smelled good when it was cooking. These mammoths went extinct 4,000 years ago, so we wouldn't know what they're supposed to smell like. But I think it would be interesting to smell this newly created mammoth meat cooking. I think it would be very interesting to experience. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some examples of things that you could say when you're discussing this topic. Let's look at the questions. So it says, what are your thoughts on a lab-grown mammoth meatball? There's many thoughts that you could have about this, but I'll give you an example of something that you could say. So you might say, I think a lab-grown mammoth meatball would be really interesting. I would love to taste the meatball. Or you could say, I think this is a terrible idea, and I don't think we should be growing meat in a lab. It's not natural. I think that's an argument, you know? It depends on what you feel. Think about each side, and also think about how that you could explain that to someone. If you think that we should be able to grow, or that we should be able to cultivate lab-grown mammoth meatballs, meatballs in a lab, then be able to explain your answer, but also be able to explain the other side and to understand why that someone might be thinking about things in a different way. It's always good for a nice debate. I love a good debate. That's why you might see those in my shorts, because I think that they're fun. It's good to be able to debate with each other if you keep things civil, which means that you talk about things and you try to understand each other's side without yelling at each other or saying anything that is mean or hateful to each other. So we're going to continue trying to understand each other's side and give a couple different potential answers for some of these questions. So the next question is, do you have any concerns about eating lab-grown meat? Yes, I am worried that eating lab-grown meat isn't good for my body. This food was made in a lab and isn't meant to be eaten by our bodies, so my body may reject it. It may make me sick. I am going to just write the other side of things now. So, do you have any concerns about eating lab-grown meat? Here's the no side. No, I think that meat is meat, and I would love to try this new type of meat. No, I have no concerns with this meat being grown in a lab. I think that it's just as safe as any other meat, and I would love to try it. Number 3, do you think lab-grown meat will become commonplace within your lifetime? Meaning, do you think that you will be able to consume lab-grown meat during your lifetime? I think a couple of months ago, this would have seemed impossible. But now, since the US has approved a lab-cultivated chicken, then I think that it's more likely that this could be a reality for us. So lab-grown meat could become commonplace within our lifetime. But this is something you could still say no to. You could still say yes or no, because commonplace means that it is something that is no longer unusual. It is something that you see regularly. For example, I think lab-grown meat will become commonplace because it is already approved in America or something like that. And then you could also say, I don't think lab-grown meat will become commonplace because I don't think many people will want to try it because it's still so new. Maybe people wouldn't want to try that. The next question, how meat heavy is the average diet in your country? I think in America, people eat a lot of meat, but it depends on the person that you ask. So you might say, in my country, many people eat meat. You could leave it at that, or you could go on and explain that it's very common, like in America, it's very common for people to eat meat with at least one meal per day. At least, yeah. But that's not everyone. We do have many vegetarians and people that choose not to eat meat, but it is pretty common to eat meat, at least where I'm from. Or you could say, many people eat meat where I'm from, but I'm a vegetarian. So those are just a couple different answers that you could give. Now let's go down to the last question here that we're going to talk about today. If you would like to talk about more of these questions, then we can definitely do that at another time. Just let me know, or you can leave some comments down in the discussions and we can talk about it there. So the last question is, what meats are most commonly used in your country's cooking? In my country, many people eat chicken, fish, pork, and beef. This depends on where that you're from, what types of meats are common for where you live. Maybe you live in a country where people don't eat one of these. So maybe they don't eat pork, or they don't eat fish, or they don't eat chicken, or they don't eat beef. Maybe there are some differences here, and you could just explain those. For example, in my country, we eat all types of meat except pork. We choose not to eat pork because of our religion or because of another reason. You can always add your own personal reason there. Phew. Okay, we made it to the end. Great job. If you enjoyed yourself, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Also, don't forget to grab your free PDF lesson guide that goes along with this video. It's just extra information and it's all free to you as always. And of course, drop me a comment down below if there's anything that you would like to see, or if there's anything you just want to share with me. I love to hear from you guys. All right, let's wrap it up. See you next time. time.